Good morning. Today's lesson is 6.6, add and subtract mixed numbers. Our essential question today, how can you add and subtract mixed numbers with unlike denominators? So let's unlock the problem. Denise mixed 1 4/5 ounce of blue paint with 2 1/10 ounce of yellow paint. How many ounces of paint did Denise mix? So first of all, what operation should you use to solve the problem? Well, if we're trying to find out how many ounces of paint did we mix, we need to add both of these, right? So we're going to do addition. Next, it asks, do the fractions have the same denominators? Let's look and see. There's a 5 on the bottom of this one and a 10 on the bottom of this one. So no, they do not have the same denominators. I can't add them until they have the same denominators. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need, in order to find the sum of the mixed numbers with unlike denominators, you can use a common denominator. So first let's estimate the sum. So I know 1 4/5 is close to 2, and 2 1/10 is also close to 2. So 2 plus 2 is 4. So I know my sum is going to be somewhere around 4. So let's find a common denominator, and we're going to use that common denominator to write an equivalent fraction with like denominators. So a common denominator that both 5 and 10 have in common is 10. So let's make 10 be our common denominator. So in order for the common denominator to be 10 on both sides, on this one it's already 10, right? So 2 1/10. I'm just going to move that right over. But in order to make this one be 10, I have to multiply it by 2 over 2. 4 times 2 is 8, 5 times 2 is 10, and I have my whole number 1 that I'm going to bring over. So now I have 1 8/10 plus 2 1/10. 8 plus 1 is 9, so that's going to be 9/10, and 2 plus 1 is 3. So my answer is 3 9/10. So Denise mixes 3 9/10 ounces of paint. So how do I know whether my answer is reasonable? Well, I can compare my answer to the estimate, and since 3 9/10 is close to the estimate of 4, then the answer is reasonable. What other common denominator could I have used? Well, I could have used 50 because 10 goes into 50 and so does 5. So example, we have 4 5/6 subtracted, and we're going to subtract 2 3/4 from that. You can also use a common denominator to find the difference of mixed numbers with unlike denominators. So let's estimate the difference. 4 5/6 is really close to 5, right? And 2 3/4 is close to 3. So if I subtract that, I'm going to get the answer 2. So let's find a common denominator, and we're going to use the common denominator to write the equivalent fractions with like numbers. So 6 and 4, a common denominator that they both have is 24. You could also do 12. Actually, I'm going to do 12. So let's make it be 12. Because 12 is smaller than 24. So if I'm going to make the bottom be 12 on both of these, in order to make the whole number is going to stay the same, so let me put the whole number there. I need to take this fraction and multiply it by 2 over 2 because 6 times 2 is 12. And 5 times 2 is 10. And then over here, to get the 4 to be 12, I have to multiply it by 3. So 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 4 is 12. So now I have 4 minus 2. I'm going to do my whole numbers first. 4 minus 2, which is 2. And then I have 10 minus 9, which is 1/12. So the answer is 2 1/12. So let's explain. How do you know whether your answer is reasonable? Well, I know my answer is reasonable because I can compare my answer to the estimate, and since 2 1/2 is close to the estimate of 2 that we had here, then the answer is reasonable. All right, so let's do share and show. We're going to use common denominators to write equivalent fractions with like denominators, and then we're going to find the sum. We're going to write our answer in the simplest form. So first I'm going to move my whole numbers over. I'm going to put my 7 and I'm going to put my 4. So now I'm looking at 2/5 and 3/4. Well, 5 and 4, a number that they have in common is 20, right? If I were to lay out all my things, I could say 5, 10, 15, 20. Let's do my other multiples. 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20. And so they have 20 in common, just like we did in the last lesson. Now, in order to make this 4, be a 20, I have to multiply it by 5 over 5, because 5 times 4 is 20, and 5 times 3 is 15. So now I'm looking over here. In order to make this 5 be 20, I have to multiply 4. 4 over 4, right? So 4 times 2 is 8, and 4 times 5 is 20. So now here's my problem with equivalent form so that I can actually solve it. So as I'm looking 8 and 15, I'm adding them. So I have 23 on my top, and then again 20 is going to stay on the bottom. And then I have 7 plus 4, right? 7 plus 4, which is 11. Now I have to simplify my fraction. So 20 can go into 23 one time with 3 left over. So if I take that one whole and I add it to my 11, I'm going to get 12. So a simplified form is going to be 12. Remember, I have 3 left over 20. So the answer is 12 and 3 over 20. So we're going to do the same thing on the rest of these problems. Let's do a couple more together. So bottom numbers. What is a good number to make for these bottom numbers for 10 and 4? Well, I happen to know that 20 goes into 4 and 20 goes into 10, right? So let me put my 2 here, put my 2 that's there. I'm going to take my 3, I'm going to put it right there. Now, in order to make this 3/4 be over 20, I'm going to have to multiply 3/4 by 5 over 5. 5 times 3 is 15, 5 times 4 is 20, right? Now, to make this 3/10, next I'm going to do the 3/10. In order to make that be 20, I have to multiply by 2 over 2. 2 times 3 is 6, and 10 times 2 is 20. So now we're good. Now we have to Now we have to add. So my whole numbers, or actually let me do my small numbers first. So I have 15 plus 6, right? Let me change that to be a smaller width. There we go. So 15 plus 6 is 21 over 20. And then I have 3 plus 2, and my whole number is going to be 5. Now, having the big number on the top, we have to make this in simplest form. So 20 goes into 21 one time, and 1 plus the 5 is 6, and I have 120 left over. So my answer is 6 and 120. I'm going to do one more before you're on your own. Let's do this next one. Let's do number 4. So the bottom number on these, I'm going to make be 10. That way I don't have to do anything to the 2 and 3/10, but I do have to try and change this 4/5 and make the bottom be 10. So I'm going to put my 3, my whole number, and in order to make that be 10, I have to multiply by 2 over 2. 4 times 2 is 8, and then we have 10. So now I'm going to add these together. My whole numbers, I get 5, and then I get 8, 9, 10, I get 11/10. Okay, is 11/10. Now 11's bigger than 10, so I'm going to have to 10 goes into 11 one time, and that 1 whole plus the 6, the 5 is going to be 6. I'm going to have 1/10 left over, and that's how I do simplified fraction. Please work in partners or on the floor with me. Good luck.